Wasa Iati, how are you? Today we are going to be talking about Indigenous historical fiction. It's a series I started last month where I talk about Indigenous fiction in different genres. Last month was horror. This month is historical fiction. Who knows what next month will be. If you have suggestions about what you want to hear about next, let me know. But today we're going to talk about historical fiction. I talked about in at least one video about how I previously thought historical fiction was not my genre. I wasn't really drawn to historical fiction, so I ended up reading some historical fiction that was Indigenous written, and then I read a couple non-native historical fictions and I loved them, and I talked about them in a previous video, I think maybe a couple videos, and now I'm like, maybe I just wasn't reading the right ones. I'm basically going to expose myself because I haven't read most of these. The one of what I'm recommending, there's 10 books. I've only read 2 of them. So I'm going to start with the 2 that I've read. The first one is one I talked about in my very first video, and that is The Night Watchman. This was released in March of this year. It is my favorite Louise Erdrich book. It's based off of her grandfather's life, and the termination bill in the 1950s that would dispossess this the Turtle Mountain Reservation in North Dakota. And her grandfather was a night watchman, and he worked against this termination bill. It's about his success and his people's success in fighting against the termination bill, but it's also about so much more than that. It's set in that time period, and there's characters in the book who are fighting against it, but there's also just this really rich cast of characters, this really rich world and events, and so I think it also applies to a lot of things that happen today. But I won't get too much into it because I did talk about it in that other video. But anyway, I highly recommend this one. And she's also written a few other ones that I would consider as historical fiction. So anyway, the other one that I read and talked about in my very last video, because I read it recently, was Indian Horse by Richard Wagamese, who is also an Anishinaabe author like Louise Erdrich. This one is set in the 60s. It's about Saul Indian Horse, and we follow him as he recounts his life from his childhood through his boarding school experience, through playing hockey and alcoholism, and reflecting on his life and what happened to him. There is a lot of trigger warnings for this one, so just beware of that. And also by Richard Wagamese, I'm going to talk about another Richard Wagamese, which is Medicine Walk. We're in the area of books that I have not actually read. I was going to read the synopsi for all the books and try and summarize it in my own words, but I'm not really good at that. There's so much detail, so I'm gonna read the backs of the books today. If you prefer that, or if you would rather I summarize it in my own words, let me know, and I will work on getting better at it. I want to do what's most helpful to you to get you interested in the book or to help you learn about what the book's about. Anyway, this is Medicine Walk. I will read the back of this one, but I also will give a little more detail because a couple of these I felt like the synopsis on the back of the book was a little vague as to what qualified it as historical fiction or what made it historical fiction, and this is one of them. So this is what the back says. When 16-year-old Franklin Starlight is called to visit his estranged father Eldon, he finds him decimated after years of drinking. What ensues is a difficult journey through the rugged and starkly beautiful backcountry of the BC interior, and a vivid journey together into the past. Eldon relates to Frank the desolate moments in his life and the times as well of happiness and hope, and he tells of sacrifices made in the name of love. In doing so, he offers his son a world the boy has never seen, a history he has never known. This one, the thing that would make it historical fiction, I believe, is that the father is recounting his life, and it goes from his childhood through the Korean War and more, and so he is going through actual historical events. So that's that. I also like the cover on this one. I've heard a lot of great things about Richard Wagamese's body of work, and I would believe it, especially after reading Indian Horse. He's a really great writer. The next one that I'm going to talk about is The Winter Walk by Loretta Outwater Cox, who is an Inupiaq author who was born in Nome. I will read the synopsis. The synopsis for this one is: Kutuk asked her 9-year-old son, "Shall we stay here and die like our papa?" He answered, "No, I don't want to die." With those words, a mother's resolve is ignited. Advanced in pregnancy and now newly widowed, Kutuk sets out with her 2 children, leaving their camp and following a frozen river to the coast. Homebound, one step at a time through the sub-zero wilderness. This is a chilling, true story dating from 1892. It tells of battles against killing cold, starvation, and exhaustion. It's the story of a hunting decision made in the throes of desperation. And ultimately, it's a story of survival and triumph amidst unspeakable sorrow. More than a century later, Kutuk's story, which has descended through her Inupiaq Eskimo family as oral history, is retold in print by her great-granddaughter. Here for the first time, it is offered to the rest of the world. So anyway, it's pretty short. I think it'd be a good one. I've read other survival type stories from the Arctic, true stories, and I've actually heard from survival stories from actual people that I know, and it's pretty amazing. So I am really looking forward to this one. The next one that I have is one that recently came out. This one came out this September, and it is Even As We Breathe by Cherokee author Annette Sanook Clapsaddle. This one is set in the mountains of western North Carolina in the summer of 1942, and there are diplomats, prisoners of war, things like that. So I'll read the back for you. Even As We Breathe introduces the reader to 20-year-old County Sequoia and the mountains of western North Carolina during the summer of 1942. County is spending the season as an undervalued member of the Grove Park Inn's grounds crew. The inn is currently home to Axis diplomats and their families being held as prisoners of war. County struggles to balance the often conflicting worlds of life at home on the Qualla boundary, the Cherokee Indian Reservation, where a capuchin monkey roams the woods at will and mysterious forest fires loom, with life at the inn where foreign diplomats quietly negotiate backdoor deals and a secret room provides the rare opportunity for County and Essie, his enigmatic carpool companion, to construct their own worldviews. Bud, County's uncle, offers the only true glimpse into County's past before his parents died, but Bud's own demons threaten to upend County's peace with the past and compromise any hope for a future free from the consequences of his family's choices. When a diplomat's young daughter goes missing at the inn, County finds himself at the center of suspicion and betrayal. County's experience is an examination of race and class tangled in a microcosm of the secluded inn. His story asks the reader to consider the tropes of American imprisonment and our role as both prisoners and imprisoners. County finally comes to reason that all 3 natural elements that cause so many problems in life, bones, blood, and skin color, will not be what remains of humankind in the end. Only the human spirit can be passed on wholly to the next generation. So yeah, what's cool about this one also is that not only is it this really interesting story, which is also pretty short actually, this is also is considered the first ever novel published by a member of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians. And so I think that makes it pretty special. So this is another great recommendation. The next book is from Standing Rock Sioux Tribe author Susan Power. This is The Grass Dancer. The Grass Dancer, the synopsis is a little vague. I can't tell from online if it is one story or if it's a bunch of short stories or if it's a bunch of stories like perspectives that come together. So it's somewhere in there. I'm not sure what it is exactly, but I'll read the back. From the lore of her people, the Sioux, Susan Power has forged a remarkable novel rich with drama and infused with the magic of the everyday. Set on a North Dakota reservation, The Grass Dancer weaves the stories of the old and the young, of broken families, romantic rivals, men and women in love and at war. revealing the harsh price of unfulfilled longings and the healing power of mystery and hope. It takes readers on a journey through both past and present in a tale as resonant and haunting as an ancestor's memory and as promising as a child's dream. So what makes this one historical fiction is that it starts in the 1980s and it goes back to the 1800s, and I don't know if it like goes slowly back in time, but it follows different members of the tribe and goes from all those different perspectives going back into history. So I think that's pretty cool. I know Danny wrote a review for it and loved it. For any of these, you can look up and see, there's a lot of great Indigenous reviewers that have reviewed quite a few of these books, so I would also look into that. Danny is a great source. That's Thunderbird Woman Reads. The next book is a thick one. It is by Leslie Marmon Silko, who is a Laguna Pueblo author. It is Almanac of the Dead. Almanac of the Dead. And it is thick. I think it is over, it's almost 800 pages. Yeah. So this is one I've had for a very long time, and the size of it has always put me off and intimidated me. But I love the cover of it. The cover is really cool. This is, let's find out. Ooh, that's cool. Can you see it? Yeah. I think it's like a 500-year map. Oh, interesting. I'm gonna have to look at that. Hey, anyway, so Almanac of the Dead. Almanac of the Dead is a richly ambitious novel about people caught between two cultures and two times, the modern-day Southwest and the places of the old ones, the native peoples of the Americas, in an earlier time that is both real and supra-real. In its ambition and its range of character and culture, Almanac is fiction on the grand scale, a kind of weaving or mosaic of ideas and lives, fate and history, passion, oppression, conquest, and return. In the manner of some of the great novels of the 19th century, Leslie Silko recreates through the lives and dreams the struggles and hopes of her many characters, a kind of moral history of the Americas, told from the point of view of the conquered, not the conquerors. At the center of a large and enthralling cast of characters is Cease, a haunting and enigmatic survivor of the fast-money, high-risk world of drug dealing, a world in which the needs of modern America exist in dangerous equilibrium with Native American traditions. Cease has been drawn back to the Southwest in search of her missing child. In Tucson, she becomes the secretary, nurse, companion of Lecha, an old woman with the gift or curse of second sight. Lecha is a well-known psychic, hiding from the consequences of her own celebrity. Her larger duty is to transcribe the ancient, painfully preserved notebooks that contain the history of her own people, a Native American Almanac of the Dead. Through the violent lives of Lecha's extended family, Zeta, her sister, who may or may not be a witch, Vero, Lecha's son, Sunny Blue, the capo of a mafia family, Root, Lecha's biker boyfriend, Calabasas, whose bloodlines run back into the bloody past of the Americas, and finally Sterling, Zeta's Pueblo gardener, an old man exiled from his tribe because of a religious dispute. A many-layered narrative unfolds, written in a prose that is as clear and as sharply defined as the landscapes of Leslie Silko's native Southwest. Wow, that was a long synopsis to match a long novel, but it sounds like there's a large cast of characters, which is really cool. So anyway, this one I think is considered a classic, or at least a modern classic of Indigenous literature. The next one is one that I have been really excited to read ever since I got it. I'll just show you. This is by Pawnee author Walter Echohawk. It's The Sea of Grass. I believe Walter Echohawk is mainly a non-fiction writer, but he wrote this historical fiction. It goes through 10 generations of his own family tree back to 10 generations ago, and then leading up to the present, which I think is really, really cool. He came to my town and to the local university, and he did a talk there, and I went and got to hear him talk about the book and how he went about doing his research, and he was encouraging really encouraging of people to do the same, like go back through your family tree and learn as much about your people as possible. That's what really got me thinking about my own history and my family, and I haven't even read it yet, so I think that's really cool. I signed my copy. I bought a copy there, and he got it signed for me, so that's really cool. Anyway, I'm really excited about this one. I also really love the cover of it. That's a really cool cover. So yeah, pick it up. The second to last book I'm going to bring up is Song of Batosh. Should have looked it up before I started this video, by Maya Karen, who is Red River Métis. It's about the 1885 Northwest Resistance. This is in Canada. This is one I got in a Raven Reads box. Raven Reads is a quarterly subscription box that does native authored books, indigenous authored books and goods in a box, and it's pretty cool. This one I got last year. Obviously I haven't read it yet, but I've been wanting to. I'm actually planning on reading it in November. Anyway, I'm going to read the synopsis for you. Louis Riel arrives at Batoche in 1884 to help the Métis fight for their lands, and discovers that the rebellious outsider Josette Lavoie is a granddaughter of the famous chief Big Bear, whom he needs as an ally. But Josette learns of Riel's hidden agenda, to establish a separate state with his new church at its head, and refuses to help him. Only when the great Gabriel Dumont promises her that he will not let Riel fail does she agree to join the cause. In this raw wilderness on the brink of change, the lives of 7 unforgettable characters converge, each one with secrets. Louis Riel and his tortured wife Marguerite, a duplicitous Catholic priest Gabriel Dumont and his dying wife Madeleine, a Hudson's Bay Company spy, and the enigmatic Josette Lavoie. As the Dominion army marches on Batoche, Josette and Gabriel must manage Riel's escalating religious fanaticism and a growing attraction to each other. Song of Batoche is a timeless story that traces the borderlines of faith and reason, obsession and madness, betrayal and love. So, I don't know a lot about the Northwest Resistance. I just know names and buzzwords, but I don't know the happenings of the event, but I know that it is important. So I'm really excited to read this one. I've been wanting to read this one, and I think you should read it. So there's that. The last book I want to talk about is one that I don't have in my possession, but I really, really want, because I saw Danny at Thunderbird Woman Reads on Instagram and YouTube. I saw her talk about it, and it sounded really good. It is 5 Little Indians by Red Pheasant Cree author Michelle Good, and I will read the synopsis for you. Told from the alternating points of view of 5 former residential school students as they struggle to survive in 1960s Vancouver, one finding her way into the dangerous world of the American Indian movement, one finding unexpected strength in motherhood, and one unable to escape his demons and the bonds of friendship that sustain them, inspired by the author's experiences. Oh, inspired by the author's experiences. I hadn't realized. So that's all I know about it. The cover's also really cool, but Danny had a really rave review, and I think I've seen a couple other people love it as well, so I am really looking forward to it. Anyway, that's that. Those are all my historical fiction recommendations that you could maybe pick up any time of the year, but also November might be a good time for it. You know, November I think is a good time, especially with, as I talked about with the last video of this series, you know, Thanksgiving is that month, and it's Native American Heritage Month, which is so something I have mixed feelings about as a holiday, I don't know, or a month of recognition. Anyway, so it just seems like it might be a good time, especially if you're a U.S. citizen, to learn more about Indigenous people. I don't know what genre I will touch on next. I'm very open to suggestions, whatever you want to see. Just let me know. Let me know how you felt about this video. Give it a like, comment, subscribe, turn on the bells so you know when I post videos. And I'll see you next time. Bye.